Hello everyone, welcome to my Meta Health webinar. My name is Magdalena Szpilka and I am a Meta Health practitioner and trainer. This webinar will take about an hour, and apart from information there will be some exercises because I'd like you to experience the information I'm sharing. And before we start, I'd like to read a disclaimer. Information given in this webinar is for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice. Always consult a doctor for any health issues or illnesses. By attending this webinar, you agree to these terms. So who am I? As I said, my name is Magdalena Szpilka, and nowadays I live in Ireland. I came here in 2007 and I originally come from Poland. And who I am now and what I do now started with my son, Iggy, who is 7 this year. And I'd like to say that he taught me where to look. When Iggy was born, I got into depression, and even before him, I have had many manic depression episodes, which all got worse after having him. So I decided to use this time at home with him to educate myself in self-help tools. And I continued even more when I had my second child, my daughter Tola. And after having her, I started my journey of never-ending studies and courses. And I was having better and better results with me, with my family and friends, because obviously I was sharing the information with them and the practices I was doing. So I decided to share what I've learned and what I knew with wider audience, and I opened the practice. Tap into well-being. And the tools I use in my practice with clients are mostly EFT. This is a modality to help to release negative emotions. The work, which works beautifully with beliefs and thoughts in our mind. Access consciousness, that is all about expanding your awareness and your consciousness. And meta health, and I combine all of that together. And I work mostly with moms and moms-to-be, because I believe that this is where our physical, emotional, and mental health starts, at homes with our mothers. And I believe that if we as mothers are healthy and joyous and we love ourselves, we can give a much better start to our children. And of course, this is also the area where I have the most experience because I am mom myself. So I call my family a living laboratory. And what I will be presenting here is based on my knowledge and my own experience. And I don't want to superimpose any information on you. I want you to tune into your own inner knowing. And I want you to test the information I'm giving you. Not just take it, but test it. So let's start with a quick exercise, and this exercise I use also with my clients, and I believe the truth always makes us feel lighter and the lie makes us feel heavier. So just for a moment, close your eyes and take a deep breath and say to yourself out loud or in your mind words like war, murder, ugly, and just notice how you feel. Notice your shoulders, your stomach, how it feels when you say those words. Is it heavy or is it light? Is it expansive or it's like constrictive? And take another deep breath, release it, and now say to yourself words like love, joy, freedom, and notice how you feel right now. Do you feel less space or more space? Do you feel expansive or constrictive? Just notice. And I want you to be aware of those feelings when we go through the webinar. And if there is anything that resonates with you, great. If not, leave it. Take only what you think can benefit to you and feels true to you. So why are you here? Why are you listening to this webinar? Are you having a symptom that you don't know what to do about? Or maybe you're interested in cutting-edge information that I believe is laying foundation for future healthcare. Or maybe you're working with clients and there is still something missing, still something you can't grasp what is happening. Just contemplate for a moment. What are your reasons to be here? What do you want from this webinar? What is your intention? My intention for you today is to deliver to you two messages. One of the key messages is the body is very intelligent and symptoms are very meaningful reactions. The other key message from me to you today is that the way we perceive life, world, ourselves influences our physical, emotional, and mental health. And before we start, I'd like to have another exercise to help you open up more to get this new information. Because we can't get rid of the information we already have, but we can expand and look from a broader perspective. And this exercise integrates conscious and unconscious mind, and it connects two brain hemispheres, the left and the right. It comes from Huna and it's also an NLP technique. So take a deep breath and find a spot on the wall in front of you, above your eyebrows. Look up a little bit and breathe and relax the eyes at the same time, looking at that spot. And now expand your awareness. So look at the dot and you also see the whole front wall. And with the next breath, still looking at the spot, expand a little bit more and more, so you have 180 degrees of peripheral vision while looking at the spot. And just notice how that feels inside of you. And take one step further and spread the angle of awareness 360 degrees around you. So you are in the center of the circle of awareness, still looking at that point. And relax into that space. And notice how it feels inside. And now you can relax your eyes, come back to looking at the computer screen, but stay in that peripheral vision. And this will help you to experience the learning in an easier way. This is a great exercise also to do with kids before they go to school. So what is meta health? In meta health we believe that the key aspect is that the human being is not just a body. And this is recently being confirmed by science. There are more and more researches done, not only in quantum physics, but in traditional medicine, showing that the body is not just blood and flesh. There are many factors that cannot be explained by traditional approach. And in case of many diseases, when you look at the cause, they are described as unknown. So in meta health, we look at all levels. We look at the body and we ask how we can support it, how we can enhance the vitality, how we can keep it healthy and energized. When we look at the mind, what emotion we need to release, what beliefs it would be good to work on or change. Then when we look at the environment, what changes and alternations we can do in our environment to enhance the healing and stay healthy. So metatherapy is about what we need for the body, what do we need for the mind, for the environment, to release the symptoms and stay healthy. And here are many examples of many different modalities, therapies and specialties in healthcare. So we have complementary medicine, traditional medicine, alternative medicine. And they all have great results as well as little results or not lasting. But what if we could combine them all? What if we could use the expertise and the knowledge that people who do those things they have, maybe they can share? And in meta health, when we look at the illness, when we look at disease, we're not so strict about certain position. So for example, if in the family the child gets sick and maybe one parent wants to go to a doctor, another parent wants to go to maybe a healer, and they argue, in meta health we suggest to take 2 steps back and look from broader perspective, from beyond perspective. And meta actually means beyond. So meta health gives us bigger picture, gives us neutrality, and gives us more solutions. So meta health is bringing all specialists and directions together. And at this year's 2013 Meta Health International Conference we had in March, we had great health professionals from all fields of practice. We had doctors, we had dentists, psychologists, we had physical therapists, energy healers. They were all in one room, all accepting and honoring each other. It was a beautiful, beautiful picture to see. And individually, we may focus on different aspects of the human being and use very different methods and tools, but we have the same understanding. We look from beyond. We look at the body's healing intelligence from that perspective. So meta health integrates all disciplines. It looks at the person as a whole, including the lifestyle. It's very much about the prevention, because when you know the cause of what is happening with you, you can prevent it. And it's healing orientated and evidence-based. We have more and more evidence. And now I will talk about the body, mind and spirit connection. And I think the best would be to do exercise now, so you can experience this for yourself. So close your eyes and think about something said or something that made you angry during the last couple of days. Not something very dramatic, just something so that we can feel the sense of sadness, or you can feel the anger. And notice how your body feels. Is it light, full of energy, or heavy and tired? Maybe tensed. You can scan your body and see what you feel. Where is it tensed? And take a deep breath and release it. And now smile. Just smile for 30 seconds. Put smile on your face. And notice what happens now. What thoughts you have, how your body feels. Just notice, observe it. And I presume that you can see the difference between part 1 and part 2 of this exercise. You can really see the connection between what we think and how our body feels, and also what happens with the body and how we then feel and think. And here I want to talk about the organ, brain and mind connection in a little bit more detail. So, do you know that the stress affects the body? Do you see this in your life, that when you're stressed, maybe you can't eat at that time, or when you're stressed and you think about something, you can't do something else, you can't focus on something else? And when you look at this diagram, what it shows is that when something happens in our social life, in our social environment, we have some thoughts about it, based on our beliefs, based on how we see the world. And then we have emotions that show up, and then something happens on the brain level and the organ level. Now the question is, is there a correlation between specific stress and specific organ reaction? In other words, is it possible that specific stress affects specific organ? And if yes, why? What we also see in meta health is that there is direct correlation and synchronicity between those levels. What happens on the mind level happens also on the brain level and on organ level. It happens at the same time simultaneously. And I hope I will be able to show you this when we go to the healing process. So did you ever ask these questions? Why me? Why now? Why exactly we are getting sick? What is triggering our specific symptoms? And why the symptoms starts at this certain time? What keeps chronic illnesses alive? And what is the role of emotions and thoughts and beliefs in the sickness? And when I became a mother, those questions really started to show up, because naturally I wanted to save my kids from the pain and discomfort. I wanted to know, how can I keep my children healthy? And for a long time I couldn't find the answer. So what exactly triggers symptoms? On this slide you will see different risk factors that we know. So it can be bad nutrition, it can be lack of exercise, it can be toxins like smoking or alcohol, it can be side effects of drugs or treatments, and it also can be genetic. There are many, many risk factors, and they all play the role. But if we all are exposed to them daily, why some of us get sick and some of us don't? Why someone who eats healthy foods and exercises still gets sick, when at the same time someone who smokes, for example, or doesn't care about healthy diet is doing great? And what we see in meta health is that there is something else that can start the disease. And we call it Uden moment. And I don't want to take this as information that you have to believe in. I'm sharing this information for you so you can test in your life if this makes sense. Okay? So Uden, what does it mean? U stands for unexpected. So this moment is something we were not prepared for. We didn't know it was coming. It's very dramatic. It's very emotional at that moment. We feel isolated, which means maybe we have nobody to call to or talk to, or maybe people around us just don't get our point of view. And this is also the moment where we have no strategy. We don't know what to do next. And to give you an idea how the Uden moment can feel like, I'll give you another example and another exercise. So again, close your eyes and take a deep breath. And another deep breath. Hey! Did it shock you? On a scale from 0 to 10, how shocked you were that I shouted? And notice what you felt in your body and where. Did you feel cold or warm? What was your inner reaction? What happened when you realized it's just an exercise? So again, check it on the scale from 0 to 10. If 0, no shock, 10, big shock, pick your number and remember this number. And we will go to the part 2 of this exercise, but this time I will tell you that I will be shouting. So close your eyes and prepare for the shout. And I will count. On the count of 3, I will shout. 1, 2, 3. Hey! Are you shocked this time? If you look at the scale from 0 to 10, where would you be now? And compare this number with the first part of the exercise. Probably I'm assuming that you were not shocked the second time. Okay? And now I will give you an examples of Yudin moments. What could be a Yudin moment? Maybe someone told you something in secret that really shocked you. You were not prepared for that. You can't talk to anyone else about it. It's very emotional for you, and you don't know what to do about it. Maybe you're at work and someone is shouting at you, just out of the blue. Or maybe you saw something that really shocked you. It could be also an accident, or a divorce, or a death in the family. So the Yudin moment is something that happens in a blink of an eye. It also depends on our perception, because what is shocking for you might not be shocking for someone else. It also determines which specific part of the brain will react, and I will speak about it when we go to the brain part. At the moment of the Yudin moment, the brain, specific part of the brain, sends signal to specific organ tissue and specific location in the body. And then the organ reaction starts. We also become more sympathetic than usual, and I will explain what that means. Our personality can change, and sometimes something called conditioned reflexes can be created at that time. And probably most of you are familiar with the Pavlov experiment. He was giving the food to dogs, and every time he would give the food to dogs, he would ring the bell. And, obviously the dogs were salivating when they were eating food. So every time he would ring the bells when the dogs were getting food, and then he would not give them food, but he would ring the bell, and the dogs were still salivating. This is how our brain associates. So, for example, the child is sitting in the kitchen, eating maybe oranges, and suddenly mom comes to the kitchen and father comes to the kitchen, and they start to argue. It's unexpected. It's dramatic for the child. He's in isolation and he has no strategy. And his brain can associate the argument with oranges. And the next time he eats oranges, his body goes into reaction. So he doesn't have to experience argument again, but he experiences this on a body level, on the mental level. So this is one of the explanations how the allergies can show up. Okay. Here we have examples how very often we speak to ourselves about the Yudin moment. It's hidden in our speech. We say things like, "It hit me like a hammer in the stomach," "My words were stuck in my throat," or "I can't digest this problem," or "He broke my heart." We say those things. So observe those. Notice them when you say them, or if someone else say that. Just notice when we do it. Is disease and healing a process? Now we will look at that. Everything in our life on this earth is polarity. We have breath in, breath out. We have male, female, positive, negative, outside, inside, right, left. And also, our autonomic nervous system is polarized, is divided into 2 subsystems. In many cases, the 2 have opposite actions, and one of them, the sympathetic state, activates physiological response, and the parasympathetic state inhibits it. So the sympathetic in general mobilizes the body. It is on when we are active, when we work, and also when we are stressed, when we are in this fight or flight response. Parasympathetic, on the other hand, is responsible for stimulation of rest and digest. So it is on when we rest, when we sleep. It serves metabolism and is about the regeneration and build-up of resources. And I will walk you through the overview of sympathetic nervous system. So as I said, this is active when we work and also when we're stressed. And the main organs that will be activated at that time are heart, muscles, and the primitive brain, because this is the time to fight or to run away. So we need those organs to do that. And usually the sympathetic is active between 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. This is when we are most active. And if we are really in severe stress, then our body can be really tense. We can have obsessive thinking, we can't sleep at night. It's very typical in the stress phase, to wake up at 3, 4 a.m. and you can't fall asleep again. This is the time when you have sugar cravings, fast food cravings, because your body needs very quick energy, and sugar is very quick energy. You don't have time to break down the food. You don't have time for wholesome food. This is the time where you have cold body and extremities, because the whole blood is going from the fingers or foot to the muscles, to the heart. This is the time where you can have high blood pressure, palpitations, contracted blood vessels, cold perspiration. And this is the time when the glucose level is very high in the bloodstream, and there's loads of adrenaline in your bloodstream because you need it to have faster reactions. Now if we go to the opposite, the parasympathetic, this is active when we rest, when we regenerate, when the body finally has a chance to rebuild. So this is the time for the metabolism to be activated, or the digestion or the elimination. So in the stress phase, for example, you can have a constipation because the body doesn't have time and energy to move the chunk forward. But if you relax, if you don't have to be stressed, now the body can release the chunk, eliminate it, and this is when you can get diarrhea. So the organs that are active at that time is stomach, liver, bowel. And the usual time is from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. And this is the time when we get fatigue and tiredness. We have good appetite now because it's time for digestion, so we can gain some weight. And we have hot skin and body because now the blood can come back to fingers and foot and the whole body. We can get fever, the blood pressure is lower, the heart, the rate of the heart is slower, the vessels are wider, and all digestive and elimination activities are amplified, because this is the time where the body repairs after the stress phase and builds up the reserves and the energy. So let me show you now a model from mental health perspective that, based on this sympathetic and parasympathetic state, explains the healing process. And in my experience and experience of many health professionals, we notice that healing is a process that consists of 2 phases. And again, I don't want you to believe me, I want you to test it for yourself. So in this model, we have 5 points. We have stress trigger, stress phase, regeneration trigger, regeneration phase, and health. I'll just take a sip of water. And we go on to the next slide. So from meta health perspective, we believe that disease starts with stress trigger. And stress trigger in this model is this Yudin moment, unexpected, dramatic, in isolation, and you have no strategy. An example here, because I want to give an example so you can really understand the model. The example could be the child comes back home from school and the parents say, "We need to talk to you about something. We are moving to another town." And the child get upset. "No, I don't want to go anywhere. I want to stay here. I want to stay with my friends, with my school. I don't want to go anywhere." It's very unexpected for him. He didn't know it was coming. It's very dramatic, very emotional, very isolative, because his parents want him to understand this is what we are going to do, but he doesn't want to, so it's like his point is not taken into consideration, and he's got no strategy. He doesn't know what to do now. So this is the moment when the body activates the sympathetic, the stress phase, because we're looking to find a solution. And all those reactions that are happening in the stress phase, they are happening at the same time on different levels. So we have the sympathetic reaction in nervous system. So we have loads of adrenaline, cold body and extremities, high blood sugar, because we want to find a solution. We either want to fight or we either want to run away. And we can have different organ symptoms. And I will explain more about cell reactions in different organs when we go to the brain part. But just for now, in some organs, at that moment in stress phase, there will be cell growth. For example, if liver is under stress, it will grow bigger. If the lungs are in stress, they will grow more lungs alveoli. If the prostate is in stress, it will have higher function. Now the other organs, like for example muscles, in the stress phase, they will have less cells or less function. So muscles will break down in stress. And if we talk about hearing, in stress phase, you will lose the hearing. Also, at the same time, something happens on the brain level. There's markings on specific brain area that are visible on the CT scan, and I will talk about it when we go to the brain. And if we talk about mind and emotion symptoms, we have obsessive thinking, we have a lot of emotions, it's very stressful for us, we can get depression, or we can become very competitive and territorial. Now, if we talk about the child that got the Yudin moment, if for him moving out is losing physical contact with friends, the organ that will react is epidermis. It's the outside layer of the skin. This is the organ through which we connect physically with others. We use it to sense the touch. So what the epidermis will do to help us to feel the loss of physical contact less? It will desensitize. So the epidermis will become less sensitive, pale, and cold. Now, if the situation changes, so if we find the solution to our problem, and in meta health we call it regeneration trigger, and it can be different kinds of this resolution, and I will explain you now the regeneration triggers, and I will show you what happens next. So one of the possible solutions could be real life solution, which means the situation was changed. So the stressful situation or trigger has reversed, is not present anymore. So for the child, it could be that he comes back home another day and his parents tell him, "You know what, actually we're staying, we're not moving because daddy did not got the job eventually in the new town. And the kid resolved the issue. Another examples here are, for example, we had a fight about money with relatives and it has been resolved. Or we left a stressful job, or we went for vacation, or we got a check and it solves our financial problems. Or, for example, after an argument with the husband comes and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I had a bad day, I really love you, so you don't feel unworthy anymore." So this can be real life solution. So something has changed in your environment, in the situation. But you can also have inner solution. So you change the perception. You look differently at what happened. You look differently at the Yudin moment. And here you can use things like meta-therapy and techniques like EFT, the work, NLP, timeline, Reiki to change the perception of the situation. And when you change the perception, you can reconnect with the deeper meaning of the symptoms. You can get higher learnings. Then the true forgiveness comes in, and you just be present with that. And here examples could be that you truly forgive your partner even though he cheated on you. Or now you trust the universe or God that it will provide for you. So for the boy, the change of perception could be that he started to learn more about the town that they were supposed to move to. And he now can see that they have a great school and great clubs, and maybe it's at the seaside. So it's not such a big deal for him now that he's going to another town. And at that moment, epidermis will have a different reaction. And we will see what is happening with the skin on the next, when I will be explaining the next slide. So first, the overview of the regeneration phase, and then I will tell you what happens with the child, with his epidermis. So again, in regeneration phase, again, it happens at the same time on all levels. The sympathetic phase switches to parasympathetic. This is the time when we feel tired and we sleep a lot, because the body now doesn't have to be in stress. Now it can relax, repair, regenerate. And this is the time when we have warm body and extremities. So notice when you are at work or you're doing something stressful, just notice if you have cold hands or very warm hands. And then when you're really relaxed, when you feel relief, notice if your hands are cold or warm. Now, when we go to organ symptoms, if there was cell minus in stress phase, now there will be cell plus in the same organ in regeneration phase, because the body seeks the balance. So if we talk about the muscles, in the stress phase they were breaking. In the regeneration phase, they will grow. If we had less sensitive skin in stress phase, we will have more sensitive skin in regeneration phase. And opposite, if we had more function or more cells in the stress phase, we will have less in the regeneration phase. So if the prostate function was high in stress, it is less in regeneration. If you had loads of stomach acids in the stress phase, you will have less in regeneration phase. And this is actually the time when we get most of the symptoms like inflammations, headaches, pains, diarrhea, flu, fever, skin rash. And we call them diseases. But this is just a part of the whole process. And actually, we are healing here from the Yudin moment. So at that moment, the body is repairing what we didn't know that was going on in the stress phase. And if we go back to the child, his skin was desensitized in the stress phase, and now into regeneration phase, his skin will be very sensitive, red and itchy and hot. and usually the itchiness starts 8 to 10 seconds after resolving an issue with losing a physical contact with someone. So just observe people or kids, especially babies. And for babies, physical touch is so important. That's why very often they get the eczema or the rashes. There's also something in the middle of regeneration phase, and I don't want to go into much detail, but I want to just to touch on it. In the middle of regeneration phase is something called healing peak. And this is a time of coming back from regeneration phase to a stress phase for a moment. It's like the body is testing if we are ready to come back to normal day activity life. So for example, maybe you had a situation where you had a cold or flu, and after some time you felt better and better, and you decided to go back to work, and you came back to work and boom, you've got fever again. This is the way the nature is testing. Am I really done with this problem? Okay, and sometimes the healing peak can be very painful. Like the kidney stones are released during the healing peak in the middle of the regeneration phase, and it can be also traumatic because it can be something as bad as heart attack. And after the healing peak, the body regenerates to total health. And the second part of the regeneration phase after the healing peak is the time when we go to the toilet a lot, when we pee a lot, we're releasing water. Now when we go to the brain level in the regeneration phase, we will have different markings in the same area that there was stress phase, but it will be different marking. If we go to mind emotion symptoms, the obsessive thinking is gone, the strong emotions are gone, we feel at peace with what happened, and we feel like relief. So when you think about the exercise we had about the Yudin moment, when I shouted, this is what happens. There was this shout, it was shock, and it was relief. Oh, it's just exercise. And the next point is health. So as you can see, illness is not a constant and unchanging state. It is rather a process in which there are two distinct phases. And both phases are actually the healing through which we go to deal with the stress trigger. And what is very important, the whole process takes place only if we had a resolution to our problem. If not, we are still in stress phase. And I will not go into chronic diseases now because this would take another whole webinar, but just to give you an idea, there are a few possibilities how the chronic diseases can be still active. So one of the possibilities is that we keep having the same stress trigger in our life and we experience it the same way every time. So every time we have the same reaction. Or there can be something that reminds us about the stress trigger. So the condition reflexes, like with the Pavlov's dogs or with the oranges. Because if you have chronic issue yourself, or you know someone who has it, when you look at it, sometimes the symptoms are less and sometimes the symptoms are more. And this is when the body goes from stress to regeneration. It alternates. And now we go to the brain. And what I would like to show you in this part is that each organ tissue is governed by specific brain part. And the changes in the brain part during the healing process, and I mean healing process, stress and regeneration, are visible on a brain CT scan. And here you have an image showing what the markings look like in the stress phase. They are sharp, clear rings. And we have great doctors in Meta Health who can read those markings, who can read those scans. It's not essential. You don't have to know how to do it, but this just shows how when we combine all those disciplines, people like doctors who know how to read them, they can look at the scan and they can see, okay, this part of the brain is in stress, this one is regeneration, and they know which part governs what organ. So in stress phase, the markings are sharp and clear. In the regeneration phase, they are blurred and unclear because there is a lot of water in that brain area. And in the chronic process, we have sharp and blue rings appearing at the same time. And here you have an image of brain relays. We have old brains and new brain. So the old brain consists of brainstem and cerebellum. This is the very primitive brain, the survival brain. And then we have the new brain where we have cerebral medulla and cerebral cortex. And each brain relay governs specific organ tissues, not even whole organs, but the tissues of the organs. So for example, skin, different brain relay governs dermis, which is the inner layer of the skin, and different one governs epidermis, which is the outside layer of the skin. Now, why is it important? Listen carefully, because this is where it starts really interesting and exciting. So we go to the brainstem first. Brainstem governs all the digestive and reproductive organ tissues. This is the primitive brain. If we don't eat, we die. If we don't reproduce, we don't have human beings anymore on the earth. So here, the organs that are governed are stomach, liver, intestines, ovaries, testicles. And the theme here is obviously survival. Then we have cerebellum. And cerebellum governs all inner protective layers. So for example, pleura, which protects lungs, peritoneum, which protects the organs inside our abdomen, pericardium, that protects our heart, or dermis, the inner layer of the skin. And here the theme is protection. Isn't it logical? And now we have cerebral medulla. And here, cerebral medulla governs all the organs that are essential for standing up and moving about. So we have muscles, bones, blood system, all the tendons and cartilage, etc. And here the theme is self-worth, self-devaluation. I need to be strong to stand up, things like that. And then we have cerebral cortex, the youngest part of the brain, the thinking brain. And here we have the cerebral cortex governs the organs that are essential for communication and interaction with outside world. And here we have all the 5 senses, ducts, coronary veins. And here the issues are territorial or social. Organ tissues reactions. Do you remember when I told you in the stress phase and in the regeneration phase, sometimes it was plus, sometimes it was minus reaction? So the old brain, which consists of brainstem and cerebellum, the reaction in the stress phase, it will be always plus, so there will be more cells or more function. And in the regeneration phase, there will be less cells and less function. So for example, prostate, which is governed by brainstem, it will have more function in the stress and less function in regeneration. Cerebellum, for example, we have dermis here. In the stress, there will be more skin. So, for example, acne, it's buildup of the skin. And in the regeneration, the pimple will break out. You can't squeeze the pimple when it's building in the stress phase, but when you squeeze it in the regeneration phase, it's, the white thing or the yellow thing gets out. Now the brainstem, here we have cerebral medulla and cerebral cortex. In the stress phase, they will have less cells or less function, and in the second phase, they will have cell plus or function plus, because the body is always seeking the balance. So in cerebral medulla, for example, muscles, as we said before, if you go to the gym and your muscles are in distress when you are in the gym, they break. When you go back home and they're painful, they build up again. If we talk about the cerebral cortex, epidermis in the stress phase is less sensitive, and in the regeneration phase it's more sensitive. And we go to examples. If a man experiences a situation with territorial anger, for example, he's preparing his project and the boss comes and he starts to yell at him, he can react with gallbladder. Self-devaluation. If a husband has an argument with wife and feels not worthy, looks at that filter, at that situation, his bones can react. If the man is not feeling man enough, if he says to himself, I'm weak as a man, then the prostate can react. If a woman thinks about her lost husband and she perceives this as a profound loss, and maybe she thinks, now I will never have kids, then the ovaries can react. If a man looks at empty bank account as I will starve, then the liver parenchyma can react. Specific tissue of the liver, parenchyma. And now I will give you an example that shows different organ tissue reactions depending on the filter through which we look at the situation. So let's say wife comes back home and she sees her husband in bed with someone else. This is a huge stress trigger for her, and she gets Udin. It's unexpected, she didn't see it coming, very dramatic for her, very emotional, in isolation because right now she has nobody to talk to and she has no strategy. She doesn't really know what to do next in that moment. And she has this emotional reaction is based on her unconscious beliefs. Those filters through which you will look at these situations are very unconscious. So if the filter that she looks at this situation here is about, okay, I'm not good enough. Right, he found someone more attractive, younger, then it's self-devaluation and cerebral medulla will react. And one of the possible organs can be bones. If she looks at this situation as, get out from my house, I don't want you here, she wants to separate from him, cerebral cortex can react, and one of the organs could be breast ducts. If she looks at this as profound loss, like, oh my goodness, this is the end of my life, or this was the love of my life, then the brainstem will react, and it can be uterus that will react. So it's not so much about what happened, but how we experienced it. And according to Dr. Robert Scar, who is trauma specialist, he says it's not important how big the trauma was, but the degree of helplessness we felt and how we interpreted the event. We can see the same movie and perceive it differently. So the Udin and our perception of Udin determines which part of the brain will react. And then one of the organs governed by this brain relay will react. And all those examples have something in common. All those people perceive the situation themselves in a certain way. There was a self-talk going on in their heads. Their reactions were caused by thoughts they were thinking about what happened. And we can't change what happened, but we can change the way we look at it. So just to recap, first there is traumatic event, the Udin moment. The specific brain relay reacts to help us with the stress. then the organ tissue that is the best to deal with the situation reacts. And I'll give you an example with one of my clients. Her Yudin moment was the moment when her husband told her that he wants to divorce her. And although they were arguing a lot, she didn't see it coming. And she perceived this as loss of love of her life and the quality of life she had with him. So she perceived it and experienced it as a profound loss. The brain relay that reacted was cerebral medulla, and the organ tissue was ovaries. So the self-talk she had after a few months after divorce, because first it was the divorce, it was the Yudin moment, and then the resolution for her, it was after a few months she said to herself, actually I'm fine. I can have a new life. I'm better off without him. I could actually have a life with someone else. So this was resolution for her, and her body went into regeneration. So in the stress phase, when she was stressing about this divorce and that she's losing this life, she did not have menstruation because it was cell minus, less estrogen production. And then in regeneration phase, she had cell plus. So there was a cyst that started to build up on the ovaries to do what? To produce more estrogen, because the body wants to have a balance. And what the estrogen does, it gives it, the woman becomes, she looks younger and she becomes more attractive. So it's like she can attract another man. This is how our body really works. From meta health perspective, of course. So what I hope you saw in this presentation is that the symptom is a perfect organ reaction that helps us to deal with a specific conflict situation, and it is also a great source of information about our deeply rooted unconscious beliefs. Because when we see a symptom, we can go back and see what we had to think at the moment of Yudin to get that reaction. And where the beliefs come from and how they are formed is a very broad subject, so I will not go into details here, but I would like to mention that beliefs determine that we experience something as Yudin, but also traumatic events themselves can create beliefs. For example, during traumatic birth, the baby can learn that the world is a dangerous place. So what I wanted to show you is that when we know where we are in the healing process, what underlies the symptoms, what is the conflict, then we are conscious, then we are present with it, then we don't have to be scared, then we don't have to think that the body is doing something crazy. And we can choose wisely the treatment that will be the best to support our body's natural healing process. We can begin to trust our body. And we can also prevent ourselves from having long-term diseases or prevent ourselves from having similar reaction the next time. And when you know that, you can decide what is your next step. You can ask yourself questions. What conscious actions can I take now when I know all of that to support my body and mind in healing and preventing from reaction next time? What can I do to release emotions and change beliefs that contributed to that reaction? What can I do to support my body in releasing the physical symptoms? So what can I do for my skin now when it's red and itchy? How can I increase my vitality? And what changes in my environment can I apply? What can I change in my interaction with environment? And from my experience, my own experience, I can say that physical symptoms do not occur in isolation of our thoughts and feelings. I believe that how we think and feel affects changes in our physiology. And while symptom relief is very desired sometimes, and it's very necessary sometimes, it is not the long-lasting solution. because it doesn't address the cause. So to be meta-healthy means you're aware of your body's intelligence, your stress triggers, emotions and beliefs that affect your organ symptoms, and you take conscious actions for self-healing and personal growth. Because to deal with the cause of symptom, we need to identify those patterns that are preceding the symptoms and change our mental and emotional and social responses. And this is actually the role of mental health professional, to identify the stressors, uncover the underlying patterns, and help the client to change those patterns through coaching and therapy. And I want to emphasize that this is not our fault how we think. This comes from conditioning. We grew up in a family, we went to the school, we are in a society, so we have a lot of conditioning going on, but we can change it. So what have you learned today? I hope that this presentation explained my key messages. That the body is very intelligent and symptoms are very meaningful reactions, and that the way we perceive life, world, ourselves influences our physical, emotional, and mental health. And I have some homework for you, but it won't be anything difficult, it will be fun. Contemplate. Observe the two phases. Notice when your hands are cold, when your hands are warm, when you feel stressed, when you feel tired. Just observe it and play with it. Also, observe your reactions and perceptions of what is happening. How did I see that situation? Why did I react that way? Is it a pattern I'm thinking over and over the same thing? Just observe. And if you are working with clients, if you are using your own modality, just think maybe now how you can implement that. How this information can enhance your work with your clients. How you can use that to have better results or long-lasting results. So, where to go from here? If you are interested in learning more about Meta Health, there are 2-day intro trainings available as the first step into Meta Health. And during the training, you will learn Meta Health analysis process and meta therapy to help yourselves and others. And this analysis process helps to become aware of 2 phases of specific symptom. It helps to find beliefs and triggers that contribute to the symptom, and to choose how to choose the conscious action, what to do next to support the healing. You will also learn much more about 4 brain relays. And the 2-day intro training is the first step in certification process if you would like to become mental health practitioner. And to find out about trainings locally or online, you can go to www.meta-health.org. Also on that page, you can join the Meta Health organization as a member. It's a great source of information. The membership is, I believe, about €40 for the whole year, so it's like less than €4 a month. And you will have access to huge directory and client cases and library of many hours of webinars and conferences. So I truly encourage you to go there and check it for yourself. Now, this is information about me, where to find me. My website is www.tapintowellbeing.com. And under events, you will find information about upcoming presentations and webinars. Under trainings, you will find detailed information about my 2-day intro trainings. You will find information about dates and costs, and the closer one is coming in May in Nina in Ireland, and then in Bray or Greystones in June. So go to the website to check details. Under sessions, you will find information about my contact details, my prices, and special packages I offer. And I also offer special prices for long-term support and health coaching tailored to individual needs. I usually work through Skype around the world, and I also have sessions in person in Greyston's area. Under tools, you will find information about the tools I use in combination with Meta Health, which are EFT, matrix brain printing, the work, access consciousness. And under resource, and you can read about those tools there. And under resources, you will find fantastic articles. I can't stress enough how valuable they are. So you click resources, and then you will have articles, and there you will have a link to two of the master trainers from UK. It's really invaluable source of information. There you also link to fantastic ebooks. There is ebook by Suzanne Bilander, my teacher, about meta medicine and meta health, and there's also a ebook written by Johannes Fieslinger. This is the newest ebook that we have available. The title is Decoding Your Body's Intelligence, and you will find not only explanation about meta health and what it is, but also the organ and emotion directory and many client cases. I think there's like 40 client cases in that book, so it's very valuable. If you would like to be on my mailing list and get more information about Meta Health, please send me an email. You will find my email address at my website in section Contact Me. And I'm also on Facebook. It's www.facebook.com/Tap into Wellbeing. So like me if you liked what you heard. You will find interesting articles and videos there and information about upcoming events. So thank you very much for watching and listening to this webinar. I hope you can benefit of this information and that it cleared some of your maybe questions or doubts. And I hope it will bring you more peace and more understanding and trust for your own body and our amazing Mother Nature. So thank you very much. Be meta healthy. Bye.